All right. So it all started with a signal. Just an anomaly in the raw data from the Webb Telescope. Something that shouldn't have been there. The kind of thing they wrote off as a glitch at first. You know the drill. But the signal's structure, it was too clean, too orderly. Unbelievable. This wasn't noise. This was engineered. It's not a dust cloud, not a dying star. And it is definitely not a comet. It was something else. Cold, calculated. And this object, Tri-Eye Atlas. Yeah, that interstellar visitor that already had everyone stumped. And now, this new data from Webb that leaked. It changes everything. Fundamentally. Everything we thought we knew. Wrong. If this data is right, and it is right, then Atlas isn't just some rock flying through space. It's watching. And now the truth is coming out. Look, when they first spotted it, everyone's immediate reaction was, oh, a comet. Like Oumuamua. Like Borisov. The easy answer. But Atlas, it's different. It's getting closer to the sun, but there's no coma, no tail, no water vapor, nothing. Instead, it's venting CO2, pure carbon dioxide, and in massive amounts. Meanwhile, in every other spectrum, it's quiet. Dead quiet. NASA, of course, pointed Spherex at it. They were looking for water, carbon monoxide, the standard comet toolkit. You know what they found? Zero. A big fat zero. Only CO2. That's impossible, based on the chemistry we know. No natural object behaves like that. It breaks the basic rules. So, ask yourself a simple question. If it's not a comet, and it's not an asteroid, then what the hell is it? While public interest was building, NASA stayed weirdly quiet. But behind closed doors, a more powerful eye was already being aimed at Tri-Eye Atlas. The James Webb Space Telescope, known for its insane resolution and spectrographic detail, was secretly tasked to observe the object on August 6, 2025. No images were released. No press conference followed. Just silence. But now, a leaked report from an internal NASA analyst reveals what Webb might have seen. An object with no natural coma, but surrounded by a perfectly symmetrical halo of CO2, stretching for hundreds of thousands of kilometers into space. Even weirder, its infrared signature revealed an unusual brightness coming not from reflected sunlight, but from inside the object itself. Was Tri-Eye Atlas emitting artificial light? According to the leaked spectral data, the emissions looked a lot like engineered photonic systems, light patterns used in telecommunications or data transfer. The wavelengths weren't random. They were repetitive, structured, like a cosmic Morse code. And if that wasn't enough, the object's diameter was measured at 46 kilometers, way bigger than any other known interstellar object, and statistically too large to have shown up by chance. For a rock that size to arrive in our solar system from interstellar space meant one of two things. Either our understanding of the universe is fundamentally wrong, or this thing was sent here on purpose. Maybe the most terrifying discovery wasn't about the object's size, its chemistry, or its emissions. It was about the path it was taking. Tri-Eye Atlas didn't enter the solar system on some chaotic trajectory like Oumuamua. It arrived in perfect alignment with the orbital plane of the planets. The odds of that happening naturally are just 1 in 500. In other words, it flew in like a drone following a flight plan. It passed close to several planets, including Earth, before heading deeper into the solar system. Avi Loeb, the controversial Harvard astrophysicist famous for his theories about Oumuamua, called the trajectory technologically significant. He noted that the object's angle of approach was not only precise, but seemed designed to optimize observations from Earth-based and orbital telescopes, almost as if it wanted to be seen, but not fully understood. And get this, the object's point of origin traces back to the Sagittarius constellation, the exact same region of space where the famous WOW signal was detected back in 1977. That signal remains one of the most compelling pieces of evidence for an artificial transmission from deep space to this day. Now ask yourself, what are the odds that the most mysterious object ever observed in our solar system came from the very same neighborhood? As speculation grew, a new theory began to take shape, one based not on sci-fi, but on engineering feasibility. What if Tri-Eye Atlas isn't a comet or an asteroid at all, but a technologically augmented object? Picture this: a massive asteroid from a distant star system, hollowed out and fitted with internal machinery, sensors, or even an artificial habitat, all encased in dense rock for protection against cosmic radiation, with a thin outer layer designed to sublimate CO2 to hide its inner structure. To distant observers, it would look natural unless someone looked closer. This concept isn't new. In fact, it's been proposed by scientists right here on Earth as a method for interstellar travel. Asteroid ships that use existing rock bodies as natural shielding for long-duration space missions. Such an object could travel for thousands of years through space, propelled by dormant engines or advanced propulsion systems hidden beneath kilometers of crust. The images from SphereX, combined with the leaked spectral data from Webb, suggest this might not be a theory anymore. We might be looking at one right now. And if it's an artificial object, the implications are staggering. Someone or something sent it. While most of the public data from James Webb focuses on exoplanets, distant galaxies, and the cosmic background, encrypted internal logs leaked by anonymous NASA sources reveal something startling in the light curves coming from Tri-Eye Atlas. According to this report, what was initially interpreted as random thermal radiation began showing an unmistakable, modulated pattern. At first, it looked like a flicker, maybe an optical illusion caused by the object's rotation. But under deeper spectral analysis, the pulses matched sequences of prime numbers, the kind often proposed by SETI scientists as a universal mathematical language for making contact. They weren't natural. They weren't random. They repeated at precise intervals, mimicking beacon-like transmissions across multiple infrared bands. What truly made the analysts' blood run cold was the discovery of a quiet period between these light bursts. A long pause, as if something was listening, waiting for a reply. It was no longer just a matter of us observing Tri-Eye Atlas. It felt like the object was actively observing us back. NASA's response? An immediate lockdown on all observational data. Observatories were ordered to stop trying to track or publicly report any new data. To the media, the story was dead. But for those who saw the light signature, there was no going back. Following the internal Webb data leak, a strange spike in satellite retasking requests was logged through both NASA and ESA channels. But these weren't standard reorientations for routine calibration. These were reassignments ordered by military defense agencies, specifically NORAD and the U.S. Space Force. Within 48 hours of the data leak, the X-37B, a top-secret military spaceplane, was launched into a low-Earth orbit on an unannounced mission. Its payload remains a mystery, but an orbital path reconstruction suggests a high elliptic trajectory with a potential line of sight to the projected path of Tri-Eye Atlas. Why would the U.S. military deploy its most secretive space platform in response to an anomalous asteroid? What were they preparing to do? Observe it or intercept it? Behind closed doors in defense briefings, Tri-Eye Atlas was being reclassified under a new threat category: technologically unknowns of extraterrestrial origin. These internal memos were never meant to be public, but when revealed, they confirmed what many suspected. This object was not just being treated as a scientific anomaly. It was now considered a strategic problem, a problem that might require a response. As scientists dug deeper into the possibility of it being artificial, a small but bold group of astrobiologists proposed an even more disturbing theory. What if Tri-Eye Atlas isn't just a technological probe, but something alive? Not in the traditional biological sense, but as a hybrid system, part machine, part biological organism, capable of evolution and decision-making over interstellar timescales. The concept, known as biomechanical synthesis, has been discussed in fringe research circles for decades. Organisms that use metallic skeletons, radiation-absorbing shells, and AI-like neural networks to survive in the vacuum of space. Evolution driven not just by biology, but by intelligence. And if Tri-Eye Atlas is one, then it wasn't just sent. It could have sent itself. It could be autonomous, able to adapt its behavior based on environmental feedback, able to choose targets, destinations, or planetary systems to observe. Systems like ours. The implications are horrifying. We're no longer looking at a rock, a probe, or even a ship. We're looking at something that could be learning from us, evolving because of us, or worse, assimilating what it observes. In recent months, theorists and astrophysicists have started to notice another disturbing pattern. Timing. The radiation pulses, the trajectory angles, and the orbital alignments of Tri-Eye Atlas all point to a chilling possibility. Its presence here might be scheduled. According to a new model developed by independent astronomers, the object's path will bring it into proximity with the asteroid belt in less than 9 months. At that point, it's expected to change its trajectory in a maneuver that would require either a massive gravitational interaction or the use of propulsion. Some are now speculating that Tri-Eye Atlas might be entering a final observation phase, a countdown to something. An encounter, a transmission, a transformation. The structure of its repeating signals has even begun to change, suggesting phases. Some believe we are now in phase 3 of a 5-stage sequence, with the final phase coinciding with its alignment between Mars and Earth. What happens then? We don't know. But NASA's sudden silence, the rapid military response, and the disappearing images from the James Webb all seem to point to one thing. They know something is coming. Shortly after the James Webb locked onto Tri-Eye Atlas for sustained observation, something strange started happening. Instruments across the Deep Space Network began to fail. At first, it was written off as solar interference. But what followed was unprecedented. Entire data streams from distant probes like New Horizons and even legacy systems like Voyager 2 went silent in sync. Radio astronomers noted localized electromagnetic disturbances centered around Webb's observation windows. It was as if something, or someone, was reacting to the telescope's gaze. Engineers called it a coincidence. Analysts called it a cascading failure. But those who were watching closely started asking a darker question. Did Tri-Eye Atlas know it was being watched? And if so, what did this electromagnetic suppression mean? Was it a form of defense, a method of cloaking, or a warning? Because if it had the ability to disrupt communication with the outer solar system, maybe it also has the ability to control what we can and cannot see. Traditional celestial bodies follow predictable paths, elliptical orbits, gravitational slingshots, or decaying spirals. But Tri-Eye Atlas broke that model. According to leaked tracking data, its trajectory defied expectations with sudden, non-ballistic deviations. This wasn't the slow drift of a comet. These were course corrections. Caltech scientists ran various gravitational models to explain the changes, but none matched the precision of the object's actual path. Instead, the shifts appeared to be executed with intent, like maneuvers. The final nail in the coffin. On July 4th, a sharp angular shift aligned it with a specific star system, Luyten's star, a red dwarf known to host at least one potentially habitable exoplanet. A coincidence? Unlikely. If this object came from Luyten's system, if it knew where it was going, if it had planned this route decades in advance, then this wasn't the first time Tri-Eye Atlas had passed through the solar system, and it wouldn't be the last. After decoding the signal patterns emitted by Tri-Eye Atlas, a group of unconventional biophysicists made a discovery that was immediately suppressed by the mainstream scientific community. The frequency ratios in the signal mirrored fragments of DNA coding. But not just any DNA, but structures compatible with human DNA. The same helix-turn-helix motifs found in gene regulation systems. In other words, biological logic gates. Could this be a coincidence? A case of mathematical pareidolia? Or could it mean that the signal from Tri-Eye Atlas wasn't just a message to us, but a message about us? What if this object knew about life on Earth because it had seen it before? Or worse, because it had helped seed it? The idea sent shockwaves through the astrobiology community. But before a formal paper could be published, every lab involved received a cease and desist order from federal agencies. The official reason? A national security issue involving the spoofing of foreign satellite signals. But behind the scenes, everyone knew this wasn't foreign. It was interstellar. In the final leaked memo tied to the James Webb observation logs, one chilling line was repeated multiple times in the encrypted transmissions. Countdown initiated. 283 Earth days remaining. But here's the terrifying part. This wasn't a NASA-generated statement. It was deciphered from a waveform structure embedded in the IR pulses emitted by Tri-Eye Atlas. In other words, the countdown wasn't coming from us. It was coming from them. Researchers scrambled to figure out what event this countdown might correlate with. The solar maximum, Earth's orbital alignment with Tri-Eye Atlas, the object's closest pass to Mars. But none of the dates made perfect sense until someone overlaid it with historical data from the two previous anomalous objects, Oumuamua and Borisov. The pattern was undeniable. A new object appears every 7 years, each with increasingly complex emissions, each on a trajectory closer to Earth. Some now believe Tri-Eye Atlas is the third phase in a longer sequence of interstellar observation. And this countdown isn't for an event on Earth. It's for something that is scheduled to arrive. Among the most disputed elements of the leaked James Webb image of Tri-Eye Atlas was not the object itself, but what was trailing it. Analysts initially believed it was debris, maybe ice particles or dust. But further image enhancement revealed something far more disturbing. A perfectly uniform shadow cast across the infrared field in a way no natural object should. This shadow, strangely unaffected by solar light angles or background radiation, maintained its shape regardless of perspective or position. It appeared to follow the object not because of sunlight, but because of some internal source, as if the shadow itself was being projected outward. Experts at the European Southern Observatory suggested it could be a gravitational lensing artifact, but insiders from the Webb team leaked internal documentation where the object was classified as a self-shadowing body. It was a term that had never appeared in scientific literature before. But one thing was clear. If Tri-Eye Atlas was capable of creating its own shadow independent of starlight, it was manipulating the space around it in a way we don't yet understand. Weeks after Tri-Eye Atlas crossed the solar disk and moved out of view, Webb scientists were certain it was gone. But then, deep in the residual data, buried in the noise, astronomers detected a repeating signal at a frequency almost identical to the hydrogen line. The universal language of physics. The signal repeated every 12 hours and 3 minutes, too consistent to be natural, and chillingly close to the rotational period of Earth's magnetic field. After weeks of cross-referencing with past data, the most terrifying discovery emerged. The exact same pattern had been recorded by Voyager 1 back in 1996 as it journeyed through the heliopause. At the time, it was dismissed as static, but now, reanalyzed in this new context, it's a perfect match to the current emissions from Tri-Eye Atlas, and the signal is getting stronger, almost as if it's responding to us, or worse, locking on. The final data leak from Webb contained an infrared spectrogram of Tri-I Atlas's core emissions. At first, the image looked chaotic. Random heat signatures, scattered bursts of high-frequency radiation, and distorted pixels. But a software engineer on the imaging team had an idea. She converted the data to polar coordinates and overlaid star charts from the Gaia mission. The result was a chilling 1-to-1 match of bursts that outlined a detailed star map, but not of our solar neighborhood. These stars were part of the Triangulum Galaxy, 2.73 million light-years away. Even more horrifying, the final alignment tracked back to Earth, forming a perfect loop. Not only had Tri-I Atlas possibly come from outside the Milky Way, it was mapping its journey here across galaxies. This was no stray fragment drifting in the void. This was a calculated arrival. Despite the overwhelming data, the official story remains the same. It's a comet. It's debris. Nothing to worry about. But deep inside NASA, the ESA, and the Webb Consortium, a quiet panic is setting in. Sources within the SETI Institute have hinted at conversations no one dares to put on record. Discussions about non-human cognition. A theory that Tri-I Atlas is not a vessel, not a fragment, not even an object, but a thought. A non-biological intelligence encoded in structure, movement, emission, and silence. It doesn't need engines because it manipulates gravitational fields. It doesn't speak because it communicates through patterns and positioning. It doesn't observe through optics. It uses entanglement to perceive systems across time. The James Webb might not have found an alien ship. It might have found an alien mind, and it is looking back. So now we ask ourselves, what exactly did the James Webb Telescope see? Not a comet, not debris, not a random visitor from deep space. It saw something that shouldn't exist, something that shouldn't move that way, shouldn't signal that way, and definitely shouldn't be looking back. Because if Tri-I Atlas is really more than just an object, if it is a signal, a mind, or a cosmic intelligence slowly closing in on Earth with a purpose, then the James Webb didn't just take a picture. It provoked a response. It became part of the pattern. It became the observed. And in the deepest silence of space, something answered. The countdown has begun. The map is drawn. The signal is getting stronger. And at NASA, they're not panicking because they don't understand. They're panicking because they finally do. The question is no longer what Tri-I Atlas is. The question is, why now? Why Earth? And what happens when the countdown finally reaches 0? Because if the James Webb was right, and all the data points to this chilling truth, this object isn't just passing by. It's coming home.